Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to I Breathe Life channel. It's so good to have you here again after such a long time. So today's topic is titled Don't Try to Look for an Alternative Outside God. Yes, don't do it. Don't ever try to look for an alternative that is outside God. It's very easy to want to do something that is outside of God's plan. Yes. And I say this because there are times when we be faced with frustration and the waiting season may be very long and we get tired and we feel like, what, let me try an alternative. And that alternative is always outside of God. And believe me, that alternative doesn't always turn out well. And I could share one of the biblical example in the case of Abraham. God had told him, I'm going to give you a child. And he felt like it was taking time. It felt like it was delaying. Then Sarah came up with an idea, an alternative outside of God's plan, and we know the result of that. I could also share of the children of Israel when they were waiting for Moses. I'll put that scripture up. They waited and Moses was taking so much time to come down from the mount. I think Moses had spent up to 40 days. They waited. They were frustrated. You are like, maybe we are going to die in this wilderness. Maybe there's not a God after all. Maybe this Canaan land or this place that God has promised us, maybe it's all a lie, maybe it's false, and maybe there's no land that is even existing that flows with milk and honey. So I'm sure they had thought a lot about it and felt like it was some form of scam. Yes. Now when we go through this season of waiting for the next phase, like sometimes we get frustrated. Sometimes the enemy might begin to sell the wrong ideas to us, begin to tell us that, are you sure you know what you're doing? And he may begin to sell certain wrong alternatives. And that was what the devil did. Children of Israel were like, okay, you know what, let's make a god, let's build the golden calf, let's build something, and we will say, okay, this is the God that brought us. Can you imagine? They had to look for an alternative. And I know you, when you read that story, you'll be like, oh, they did bad. But the truth is that even in our life as individuals, there are times, a lot of times, that we begin to look for alternative that is outside of God's will. We know this is clearly wrong and this is something we shouldn't be doing. But because we are tired of waiting, but because we are tired of waiting and we are feeling frustrated, we begin to look for alternative outside of God's plan. Yeah. But God will help us. So I think we should begin to think about it, that even when we are going through seasons and it feels like nothing is working, one of the prayers I think that we should pray is that, God, help me not to look for an alternative that is outside your will. Help me not to do what you would not be pleased with. Help me not to go contrary to your will. It's one prayer I think that every believer should begin to pray, because sometimes you may not even know. It's until it has happened, you'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Yes. The truth is that an alternative outside of God's will does not always end well. It doesn't. It doesn't always go well. It doesn't bring the promise to us. It doesn't give us that promised child. No. It makes us to begin to derail, not just derail, even after we try to come back to God, we are filled with regret. We're like, oh, we shouldn't have done that, because the truth is that even as God forgives you, there's certain consequences that comes with that decision that you have to face here. So one of the prayers that every believer should also incorporate in your prayer life as you go through waiting seasons, that God, help me not to look for an alternative outside your will. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you.